We've looked at addition, subtraction, and multiplication of decimals. In the next two sections, we look at how to divide decimals. And first, this easier case where we're dividing by a whole number. So if you remember back in this early section 1.5, we looked at just division of whole numbers. For example, here, what is 13 divided by 5? So just in terms of whole numbers, you can see, so yeah, we're asking how many times does 5 fit into 13? And if you do the division, so the 5 goes out here, so 5 into 13, it goes 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10, subtract, there's 3 left over. So that's where we stopped in this section. Okay, so the answer, yeah, it fits in 2 times with 3 left over, so remainder is 3. So that's a good answer. But we can take it further. So when we were looking at improper fractions, so this, you can think of this as a fraction, 13 over 5. So to convert that to a mixed number, again, you're using this calculation. So the whole number is the quotient, and then it's the remainder divided by 5. All right, so 13 divided by 5 is a mixed number. It's 2 3/5. All right, so I hope you remember that. But now we're going to do it a third way. We want the answer next as a decimal. All right, this number we're dividing, this 13, it can be written as 13.0 or 13.000, so you can add as many zeros as you like. These are insignificant zeros. They don't change the number. But this lets us continue the division. All right, so we can start with so change that 13 to 13.0. And then a key step is to, so when you're dividing by a whole number, you can line up the decimal points. Okay, so for the answer, yeah, this 5 goes into 13 2 times, so the 2 goes above the 3. And then this decimal point lines up with the decimal point in the 13. All right, and now we just continue. So 3 was our remainder, but now we can bring down the 0. Okay, so now 5 into 30 goes 6 times, and the 6 goes above that 0. 5 times 6 is 30, subtracted, we get 0. Yeah, anytime you get a 0 down here, that means that's the end of the calculation. You can stop. So the answer as a decimal is 2.6. Okay, so this quotient, 2.6. And yeah, this agrees with our mixed number answer. So yeah, 2.6, that's 2 6/10. If you convert it back to a mixed number, And you can reduce that. 6/10 is 3/5. So 2.6 is, yeah, it's the same as 2 3/5 that we saw earlier. All right, so that's our main idea. So when you're dividing a decimal, a whole number or a decimal by a whole number, you can just add insignificant zeros to the right of the number you're dividing by, and then get a decimal on the top here. Just make sure you're lining up the decimal points. So yeah, but it's a bit confusing, this division. So different kinds of answers. So the same question, 13 divided by 5. If the question asks for give the quotient and remainder, then it's 2 remainder 3. If the question asks you to give it as a mixed number, then 2 3/5. But as a decimal, it's 2.6. So usually the question will specify what kind of answer is wanted. Example 2, find 3 divided by 8 as a decimal. All right, so yeah, here we want a decimal answer. Okay, so we're dividing by 8 this time. So the 8, remember the 8 goes on the outside, the number you're dividing by. So it's 8 into 3. Of course, that goes, that fits in 0 times, remainder 3. But now we're going to rewrite that 3 as 3.00. We can keep adding zeros and continue the division, and not forgetting to put the decimal point in the answer up above this decimal point. So yes, as usual, keeping track of decimal points is one of the key things. All right, so bring down that 0. So we have 30. 8 goes into 33 times. 3 times 8 is 24. And subtract that 24, we're left with 6. All right, yes, 6 isn't 0, so we have to keep going. Okay, so we'll bring down another 0. 8 into 60 goes 7 times. That's 56. Subtract the 56, we get 4. And bring down one more 0. Yeah, this time 8 goes into 40 evenly. And we get, yeah, it goes in 5 times. And we finally get a remainder of 0, so we can stop. Yeah, so notice that everything, make sure you're lining up everything nice and straight. Okay. Yeah, I can't draw straight lines, but you want everything arranged neatly. And this 3 goes here above the 0. It's like 8 goes into 30. 3 times, so that 3 has to be above the 0 in the 30. Okay, so we get an exact decimal. So 3 divided by 8 is equal to 0.375. Yeah, the other two ways, so as a quotient and remainder, it's 0 remainder 3. And of course, as a As a mixed number, well, it's a fraction. As a fraction, it's 3/8. Okay, so 3/8, that's the same as the decimal 0.375. All right, so these two examples, we were dividing a whole number by a whole number, but it works exactly the same if you're dividing a decimal by a whole number. And again, yeah, the main ideas are adding insignificant zeros to the right of the number you're dividing and lining up the decimal points. So example 3, find 7.8 divided by 4. Yeah, it doesn't tell us how to write the answer, but yeah, since the question contains a decimal, we'll write the answer as a decimal. That's usually how it works. All right, so we're dividing by the 4, so the 4 goes out here. And we have 7.8. And yeah, we can add as many zeros as we need. So started just with 1 0. All right, so 4 goes into 7 one time. So put the 1 above the 7. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract, that's 3. Bring down the 8. 4 goes into 38. So yeah, you might need to do some side calculations. 4 times 7 is 28. 4 times 8 is 32. 4 nines is 36. Yeah, that's the best you can do. Subtract the 36, that's 2. Okay, we have to keep going. We haven't got a 0 yet. But yeah, one more. 4 into 20 goes 5 times. Then we do get a 0, so then we stop. So the answer is 1.95. And of course, yeah, we're used to doing these on our, using a calculator or your phone. But yeah, for this class, we want to be able to do these by hand. We're just, getting used to working with numbers and decimals. So on your homeworks and on any exams, yeah, make sure you show all these steps. I want to see all this stuff. And also, yes, so don't forget to kind of check that your answer makes sense. So when you're working with numbers, at the beginning, maybe you should be kind of seeing, what kind of answer do we expect. So for this number 7.8, it's close to 8. And if it was 8 divided by 4, the answer would be 2. So this number does make sense. It's 7.8. It's just slightly less than 8. So the answer should be slightly less than 2. Yeah, so, if we had 19.5, then yeah, that would definitely be wrong. In the book, yeah, there's some much harder examples in the book. So yeah, this first example, 12.0342 divided by 31. Okay, so so this is the question, and it's just in the same way that we were looking at. Make sure you line up the decimal points. 31 fits into 12 0 times, so there's a 0 here. 31 into 120, that goes 3 times. 3 times 31 is 93. Subtract 27. And now bring down the 3. So it's certainly much more work if you have a bigger divisor, unless you know your 31 times tables. Yes, so doing some side calculations, 31 times 8 is the best you can do. 31 times 9, that would be 279. That's too big. Okay, so just go step by step. Again, we're looking for a 0 remainder. That means we've got to the end of the calculation. All right, so the answer here was 0.3882. All right, so if you divide this decimal, 12.0342 by 31, you get this decimal. And it's a good point here. You can check your answer. So if you multiply that 31 back on, so 0.03882, multiply that 31 back, you should get the original 12.0342. So dividing and multiplying are opposite operations, inverse operations. Dividing by 31 is the opposite of multiplying by 31. So you can check any division question by with a multiplication. And here's an easier one, 13.4 divided by 5. And it looks like this. 2.68. All right, so in all these examples, we're looking for a 0 remainder. That tells us when we can stop the calculation. But what happens if you don't get a 0? So that can happen. That so when you do some divisions, you never get a 0. There's two options. So if you find a repeating pattern, then you can use the bar notation. For example, suppose you could see that you kept getting, when you did the calculation, you kept getting 7s and 8s, so 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8. So if you can see that the pattern is definitely repeating, you can write that decimal like this, so 4.62, and then with these 7 8s repeating forever. Okay, so you just put a bar over the group that's repeating. So that's one option. The second option is to just stop at a certain point and then round your answer. Okay, so you go one place further than you're rounding. So for example, if you divide out to 3 places, so if you get an answer to 3 places, then you could round it correct to the nearest hundredth to 2 places. So use the last place you've calculated to do the rounding. All right, so this is where it gets more complicated. Example 4, find 5.9 divided by 3. And write your answer in these two different ways. So A as a repeating decimal, and B rounded to the nearest thousandth. Okay, so tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So this part B here is rounding it correct to 3 places. All right, so we're our usual setup. So we're dividing by this whole number 3. Yeah, I've added some zeros here. I'll talk about that. But yeah, for part B, since you're rounding to the nearest thousandth, then you're going to need 4 places. 3 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract. That's 2. Bring down the 9. 3 into 29 goes 9 times. That's 27. Subtract. You get a 2. Okay, now we're starting to bring down the zeros. So bring down this first 0. 3 goes into 20 6 times. That's 18. Subtract that 18, we get 2. And now, so now since we're bringing down another 0, this is exactly the same situation we just had. So if you bring down another 0, 3 goes into 20 6 times. That's 18. So you can see it's just going to keep doing that forever. Since we're always bringing down the same number 0, and we're always leaving a 2 behind. All right, so yeah, these 6's going forever, but it's 1.96666. And we know these 6's are repeating, so we can just put a bar over the 6. And that's the answer to part A. For part B, so for the rounded answer, remember rounding from section 4.4. So for this question, we wanted it rounded to the nearest thousandth. So remember the places just to the right of the decimal point. Those are the tenths, then hundredths, then thousandths. So this is the rounding place. And then to do the rounding, you go to the next place. Check, is it between 0 and 4? Then you leave this 6 as a 6. But if it's between 5 and 9, then you increase the digit in the rounding place. So the 6 gets increased to a 7, and then everything else to the right of that becomes a 0. And then you eliminate these insignificant zeros. So this is the rounded answer, 1.967. And that's rounded to the nearest thousandth. So correct to 3 places. So maybe review that section 4.4 if that was a bit mysterious. Yeah, this rounded answer, this is an approximation, so it's really not as good as the exact answer. So yeah, this 1.96 repeating, so that's really the exact answer. So that's more accurate. And also, yeah, that point again, does the answer make sense? Yeah, so this 5.9 is close to 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So yeah, we should have been expecting an answer close to 2. So this answer, both these answers certainly make sense. Yeah, again, there were some more complicated examples in the book. This one, 3.2 divided by 11. Yeah, you'll notice if you're dividing by numbers like 3 or 7 or 11, you always get repeating decimals. And so here's its setup, 3.2 divided by 11. 11 doesn't fit into 3, but it fits into 32 2 times. We can add a 0. So this is 10. Bring down the 0. 11 into 100 goes 9 times. That's 9 times 11, 99. Subtract is 1. Yeah, so you can add more zeros and bring them down. So this first one, 11 goes into 10 0 times. So this is 0 here. And bring down another 0. 11 into 100 goes 99 times. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Sorry, 11 into 100 goes 9 times. That's 99. Remainder 1. Yeah, so you can see this pattern is going to keep repeating with the next 11 into 10 goes 0 times. And 11 into 100 goes 9 times. So yeah, so now we can see a more complicated pattern. It's 0, 9, 0, 9, 0, 9 repeating. Okay, yeah, so this is one way to write it, 0.29 and then 0, 9 repeating. Or, of course, for this one, you could think of 9, 0 repeating, so 0.2 and then 9, 0 with the bar over the 9, 0. That also works. Yeah, so here are more examples. Yeah, this is maybe surprising. Yeah, if you have 3 divided by 7, then that has a really complicated repeating part. It's these 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, 1 that this whole piece repeats. Okay, here's a word problem. Suppose you bought 900 buttons for $421. To the nearest cent, how much did you spend for each button? Yeah, to the nearest cent, so this is a rounding type question. And so here's the division. So it's 421 divided by 900. Okay, so when you do the division, yeah, so you can go through the steps, you'll get 0.467 with these sevens repeating. Okay, the units here are dollars, so this is 0.467 dollars. We're rounding to the nearest cent. So here's like the 1 cent column, right? So these are the dollars. So then tenths of a dollar, hundredths of a dollar. So we're rounding. So this is the rounding place. That's 6. The 7 is between 5 and 9. So then that 6 increases. So to the nearest cent, it's 47 cents per button. Now we can look at the general case. So we've been dividing a decimal by a whole number, but what happens if it's a decimal divided by a decimal? Let's start with this example. So here we have two decimals, 1.2 divided by 0.3. In terms of fitting, so how many times does 0.3 fit into 1.2? 0.3, 0.6, 0.9, 1.2. So it fits in 4 times. So the answer is 4. And one nice way to kind of set it up, this is kind of an easy example, but to see how it's going to work in general, 1.2 divided by 0.3, think of it like a fraction. So 1.2 over 0.3. What's different here is we're dividing by a decimal instead of a whole number, but it's pretty easy to make a decimal into a whole number. If you multiply 0.3 by 10, so remember, if you multiply by 10, the decimal point moves one place to the right. So you get 3. So that's a nice whole number. Of course, to keep this fraction the same, whatever I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top. So multiply the top by 10 as well. Decimal point moves, so we get 12. All right, so 1.2 over 0.3. If you multiply top and bottom by 10, that's equal to 12 over 3. And that's an easier way to see that the answer is definitely 4. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, but the key thing we need, so if you're dividing by a decimal, the idea is just do this trick to change the bottom number into a whole number. So here we just have to move the decimal point one place to the right. So just one, just needed 10. Okay, so for this more complicated one, 0.342 divided by 0.09. And now we have to work a bit harder to make this into a whole number. Okay, you can see we need to move the decimal point 2 places this time. Again, writing it like this. Yeah, so this time we need to multiply by 100. So the decimal point ends up here, so we're getting 9. Multiply the top by 100 as well to keep it the same. So the top is still a decimal, but that's okay. The main thing is we need to be dividing by a whole number. Why is it important to divide by a whole number? Well, that's the only case where you can line up the decimal points. Okay, so that's this lining up the decimal points. That's what we're after. If you're dividing by a decimal, then that's not going to be the case. All right, so now we're dividing a decimal by a whole number, so we're back to the situation in the last section. 9 into 34 goes 3 times. Put the 3 above the 4. 3 times 9 is 27. Subtract, that's a 7. Bring down the 2. 9 into 72 goes 8 times. The remainder is 0. So the answer is 3.8. Okay, so we don't need to do any more adjustments with the decimal point. We don't have to move it back 2 places. The original question is really the same as this question. We haven't changed it's an equivalent division question, just because we're doing the same thing on the top and the bottom. And so the answer is 3.8. So yeah, this is different from, remember in multiplication we had to add the number of places, so there's nothing like that here. All right, so dividing a decimal by a decimal is just this extra first step to make the decimal you're dividing by a whole number. So here's the rule to divide 2 decimals. First, multiply both numbers by a power of 10 that makes the number you're dividing by a whole number. Okay, so we want the number on the bottom to be a whole number, but don't forget to, if you change the that number, you have to also change the number you're dividing by. That's a common mistake, to forget to move the decimal point on the top number. All right, so once you divide it by a whole number, then it's just the same as before. Line up the decimal points, add any insignificant zeros you need. So another example here, example 6, compute 6 divided by 0.7. Okay, so we're dividing by a decimal and round your answer to the nearest thousandth. So in other words, we want the answer correct to 3 decimal places. Okay, so doing this first step, we have 6 divided by 0.7. So yeah, we just need to move it 1 place, so just multiply by 10, top and bottom, so it's 60 divided by 7. And so your decimal point just moving one place. Yeah, this 6, yeah, think of it as 6.0. Move the decimal point. It's 60. Or even easier, 6 times 10 is 60. And so now it sets up like this, and line up the decimal points. So now we're in business. And now just go through the calculation as usual. And the only problem here is it's not we're not getting zeros. We're not getting a zero remainder. In the jargon, we say it doesn't terminate. Yeah, if you're dividing by 7, it never terminates. It never stops. The question was to round the answer to the nearest thousandth. So for that we need, so you get tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So there's a 1 in the thousandths place. But to round it correctly, we need one more place. So we have to do the calculation out to here. And now we can do the rounding. So we have a 1 in the thousandths place. That's the rounding place. The 4 is between 0 and 4. So that tells us that we keep that 1. And then make everything else, make the 4 and everything else 0. So the answer, the rounded answer is 8.571. Okay, so if you're rounding, then you need to do the calculation to one step further. Okay, how about this one? Okay, we've thrown in a negative sign here, a negative 0.000319 divided by 0.011. So yeah, we can see we need 1, 2, 3 places to make this a whole number. So we need to multiply by 10 to the power 3, top and bottom. And also we see if you're dividing two numbers with different signs, then the answer is negative. So we know the answer is going to be negative. So now we can forget about the signs and just do this division. So yeah, the top number became just 0.319. So this is the question we need to do. So we're dividing by 11. Line up the decimal points. Thankfully, this one does terminate after 3 places. So the answer is exactly, so the quotient here is exactly 0.029. And then just remember, yeah, we need it with a minus sign, so negative 0.029. That's the answer. And yeah, like we said before, so this number divided by 0.011 gives you this. You can check your answer by multiplying that 0.011 back on. So if you do this multiplication, if you remember how to multiply decimals, so this may be a good review. It's really, well, positive and negative times a positive is negative. This is 3 places, this is 3 places, so the answer will have 6 places. And then you're just multiplying 29 by 11. So that's 29 times 11 is 319, and then give it 6 places. So that does work. So yeah, if you have time on the test, you can check your division. And it's the same in the book. So what's this question? Yep, 8.61 divided by 2.5. Well, we need to make that 2.5 a whole number. So multiply top and bottom by 10. So then it becomes 86.1 divided by 25. Line up the decimal points and then do the division. This one terminates after 3 places. And here's a rounding one. Yeah, this one you're dividing by 6.41. So multiply top and bottom by 10 to the power 2. Okay, so we're moving 2 places, 2 places. And so this question is equivalent to 3,206.7 divided by 641. Okay, so yeah, dividing by 641, that's going to be painful. So to 3 places, it's 5.002. Yeah, there are more digits here. It keeps going, but we have enough here to round it correct to the nearest hundredth. So here, this is the rounding place in the hundredths. 2 is between 0 and 4, so we keep this 0. So it's 5.00, or just 5, rounded to the nearest hundredth. And one last example here, it's we're dividing by a negative decimal. Okay, positive divided by a negative, the answer will be negative. We need 2 places, so multiply the top and bottom by 100. So the question becomes 1,600 divided by 25. And yeah, if you do that division, you get 64. Yeah, there's another way to do this. Yeah, dividing by 0.25. Well, 0.25, yeah, we'll see that that's equal to a quarter. So this is the same as dividing by a quarter, which is the same as multiplying by 4. Okay, so yeah, either way you'll get, the answer is negative, so either way you'll get negative 64. All right, that was a good look at division of decimals.